Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today I'm going to be talking about some culture shocks I have had since I moved to Ibadan. um I mean, I'm going to talk about my whole, like, why I moved and everything, but I just thought to put it out there. Maybe am I like imagining things? Is this for real? Is this how Ibadan people are? I just like to get some perspectives because, you know, it came to me as a shock. I used to think that it's only people who move to Lagos that would have culture shocks. But yeah, culture shocks are everywhere. Wherever you decide to move to, you would always like be coming from something and then getting to a new place, you're getting a whole different vibe. So I'm going to talk about a few things that have, surprised me since I moved to Ibadan. So let's get into it.
So, one of the biggest shocks for me was transportation. In Lagos, when you want to go out, you know, if you are not mobile, you just need to um, book your ride, probably on Bolt, you Uber, whatever, in drive, and then whatever the app says you are going to pay is what you end up paying. There are no shortcuts, no, you can decide to tip the cab person, but it's not compulsory for you to do that. But then, when I initially came to Ibadan, I wasn't mobile because, I had not moved my car from Lagos to Ibadan. And so, imagine my shock when the first time I tried to book a boat, the fare, on the app, I could see that it was 3,000 naira to my destination. And the next thing, the driver calls me and he's like, "How much are you going to pay?" And I'm like, "What? What do you mean, how much am I going to pay?" The app says I'm paying you 3,000 naira. That's what I'm going to pay. And and the driver was like, "No, you're going to pay 6,000 naira." I was like, "For what? Why would I pay 6,000 naira for a fare that clearly shows 3,000 naira?" And then he just said, "If you cannot pay 6,000 naira," he just started like, talking and saying, "Don't you know the price of fuel? Yada, yada, yada." And he was like, "If you cannot pay 6,000 naira, I'm not going." I was like, "Okay, maybe this guy is just being rude or something. So maybe I should try somebody else." And then I went on to try someone else, and it was the same thing. The app says this, the driver says no, I'm going to pay. So transportation in the city, if you're not mobile, it's a hassle, right? And it's not just with hailing cabs, it's also the same thing with every other service. Like every other, I haven't entered the small micras or whatever, but even the bikes, I don't like bikes, but even with bikes, if you have to transport yourself from one location to the other in short distance, transportation is expensive.
So I remember um, one guy who carried me one time, and basically, this guy had carried me. He had, driven me on a particular day, and because we had a good conversation, that was probably the first person I would have any decent conversation with, or the first cab driver I would have any decent conversation with. um we got talking. He took me out again another day, and we got talking, and I just wanted to understand, because sometimes we kind of assume a lot of things. So I just wanted to understand why, the service was the way, the transportation service was the way it was. And he's the reason why the service is the way it is because in Lagos, for instance, there are lots of, Lagos is populated. You have the rich guys, you have the middle class, you have, so most people can afford the cab service. And so when a driver goes to pick up somebody, he's assured that once he drops off that person, there'll be somebody else that he can pick, to another destination. But in Ibadan, if you take somebody to a particular destination, there's no assurance that you would see or you will get another passenger from that location where you dropped off the first passenger. And so most times when they have to go to a location, if for example the fare is 3,000 naira, they double it and make it 6,000 naira, because there's no assurance that they will be able to recover or recoup the cost of fuel to and fro that location. And I was like, okay, so that makes a lot of sense. But then why do we, as the customers who are patronizing you, why do we have to bear the brunt for such situations? So I think the major challenge is that there are not enough options. You don't have enough options, where even if you decide not to take a cab, those type of cab hailing services like Uber and the likes, you have an alternative, a good alternative. Because sometimes you could stand at the junction for minutes, for a long time, and you not get anyone going to your location. So I think there's something also wrong with the routes. The routes are not organized, so you find somebody in one location taking you to like somewhere that is like really far. Meanwhile, there should be transportation services that can do that within that location. So yeah, transportation is like the top of my list. Like, it's a huge shock for me, and adjusting to it, I mean, I'm definitely going to have to be mobile, because it's not working at all. Culture shock for me was, people like passers-by just going into your bin and just taking things from your bin. I found that quite worrisome. Like, people just walk into your street, into your, like, in front of your compound. They just start to pick bottles, pick stuff from your bin. I'm like, why? Usually, I know maybe I'm not aware that it happens in Lagos, but I see, people do that in Lagos, but not to this kind of extent. In Lagos, I know people would probably take permission. Shema, the bottle here, are you going to use these bottles? Before they take them? But here, it's like an entitlement mentality. They just come to your bin, and most of these people are elderly. They are old, so you can't even say anything. You can't talk to them because you're afraid. You don't want to disrespect people, and you have to be careful when you're in a new environment, because you don't just want to go and start saying, why are you doing this? And then it turns into a nightmare. So for me, that is still a huge shock, because every time I see it happening, I just want to flip out, flip and be like, why are you doing this? Okay, so that one got me really confused, what are you doing? Then the third thing is the begging. Guys, in Ibadan, in Lagos, you see a lot of beggars. People come, they beg. But trust me, here it's on another level. Like, every single place where you go to a filling station, they beg you. If you're like, there's always somebody, there's always someone asking for your help or your assistance. And it's good to help people, right? But you don't know who these people are. You don't you don't want to go and help and put yourself in trouble. But it's way too much. Like, every nook and cranny, you would see somebody literally begging, and you're like, why. And some of these people, it's not like they are sick, it's not like they are incapacitated, it's not anything, it's just that they just want to beg you, and they keep like, it's not like beg and go. They keep begging you until you're out of their sight. Like, what? What is this? So yeah, that's been a huge shock for me. Then lastly, I'm probably going to do a part 2 of this, but lastly, for this I'm going to talk about how expensive certain things are. So you see, there are certain things that are cheap in Lagos. Well, not necessarily cheap, but you could easily like buy them without breaking the bank. But here in Ibadan, the challenge is that most of the things that are being bought here, I'm talking about things like carpentry stuff, you know, things like, you know, fittings, house fittings and all, they are quite pricey here than in Lagos, because apparently, because I did my research as well, so apparently they buy these things from Lagos, so they always factor in the cost of, you know, transportation from Lagos to Ibadan into whatever they are selling, because there are certain places you even go to, or certain places you even go to and you want to buy stuff and they say they don't have it on ground, so which means they have to go to Lagos, buy those things for you and bring them here. So for example, case in point, there was something I wanted to buy. I checked the price in Lagos and it was 80,000 naira. I couldn't carry it because obviously it was something big, so I couldn't like transport it from Lagos to Ibadan. So I asked for the price in Ibadan and it was 95,000 naira. Huge 15,000 naira difference. Now I'm not saying you shouldn't add, you know, your cost of transportation, but trust me, some of these things are supposed to be transported in bulk, so I don't think there are particular bulk buyers, you know, here. And that also stems from the whole standard of living, and the fact that maybe some people, like most people, are not, you know, financially buoyant enough to afford certain things, and so it's just few people that need all this kind of, you know, fittings and stuff, and so they have to bring them, you know, they have to go buy for specific individuals. So yeah, for things like that, it can be very like, it can be expensive, because if you're talking about one thing, we're seeing a 15k difference, but factor in that you're buying several different things, then I mean, that's a whole lot, you know. So aside that, to be fair, food is really cheap in Ibadan. Food is very cheap. Meat, tomatoes, pepper. In fact, I bought plantain one day, 1k, and I was like, you won't get this in Lagos. So there's some things that are nice, good, cheaper, but most of those high-end things are more expensive here. And even the services, like the carpentry services, I would want to do something, I'm like, in Lagos I won't do this thing for this price, you know. So it's been a lot. But then I think to balance this out, I'm also going to have a session where I'm going to talk about things that I really love, because yes, aside these things I've mentioned, there are really good things about this place which I love, and I'm going to definitely talk about them in my next video. So till then, stay tuned and see you in my next video.